Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, frequent flyers, and thank you for joining us today in the lounge. Today, my guest, Brent Fischer, and I both share a passion for space, and he is extremely passionate about helping all of us Earthlings understand the benefits of space exploration. The most perfect quote I could find for this today is "Music in the soul can be heard by the universe" by Lao Tzu. Grammy-winning producer and arranger Brent Fischer carries on the legacy of his legendary father, Dr. Clare Fischer, and they have an impressive catalog of original music in jazz, pop, R&B, and symphonic space. He's done Brent's credits appear on over 30 million albums for artists including Usher, Michael Jackson, Elvis Costello, and The Roots, and D'Angelo, and won the Grammys for the best R&B album and the song "Really Love" from his album Black Messiah, where Brent is credited as an arranger and producer. Brent, it is really a pleasure to have you on the show today. Thank you for joining me.
Hey, thank you for having me. Great to see you.
Yeah, no, it's so great. And the funny thing is that we almost crossed paths for the eclipse just the other week. We were in the same place, literally probably maybe 100, not even 100 miles away from each other, but the timing just didn't end up work. But I'm really glad that we were able to make today. So thank you for taking the time to share your experience with us.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Yeah, and we had a little clouds too. I don't know how it was where you were. We had a little cloud for the eclipse, but it was still an awesome event and great, a great reminder again of the wider universe beyond our beyond our purview.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And one of the things that I took away, because we also got clouded out for the actual totality.
Yeah, no corona, right?
Yeah, no corona, sadly. I know that is definitely an experience worth having.
Yeah.
However, leading up to the actual event, we did have these pockets. So we were able to see it progressing, the Pac-Man, the crescent moon.
Right.
And because of the clouds, we didn't need the glasses to see the crescent sun. Excuse me, I said that before, but and what I took away from it was the absolute awe everyone still felt, because it got darker, it got colder. We all just naturally fell silent. And it was still a very visceral experience, which is very often what happens when we're moved by things that make us realize that we're pretty tiny in the grand scheme of things. And space certainly imposes that. And so does music. Music allows us to find that space within ourselves as well, whether we're composing, producing, creating, or listening to it.
And I constantly am reminding people when I'll see posts on social media about this or that progress that's being made in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, and I'll remind them to think STEAM instead, because that includes the arts, and without the arts, it gets a bit mechanical. Part of what helps creativity in engineering and almost any scientific pursuit is to have some experience with artistic expression of any kind, and it doesn't have to be that you're listening to the music that you like. It's maybe that you're in a surrounding, where maybe you've got some art hanging on the wall that you really enjoy, and it sort of inspires you, and that's also another way in which we can sort of engage our creativity as we're taking care of these very serious engineering, math, and other pursuits.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the first things we connected on, was adding the A to make it STEAM rather than STEM.
Yeah.
When I even say that, my brain goes full steam ahead, right?
There you go.
We need this energy, this energetic force. I mean, creativity really is the life force energy. And even engineers, they will say, "I'm not creative," yet they're creating things, right? It's just a different form. And the things we learn when we look at life from an abstract way, when it's not this clear, like, let me connect the dots from A to B.
Yeah.
We go from a different perspective. That's what allows us to create innovative solutions. And the first person I think of that's a great example of this is Leonardo da Vinci.
Yeah. The what is it? The flight contraptions that he designed that I guess were
Yeah.
never put to the test. But I was thinking the same thing the other day. Maybe the Wright brothers wouldn't have come up with their ideas if it hadn't been for somebody like Da Vinci uh, getting into those at an earlier time and perhaps inspiring enough people that these ideas were propelled forward.
Yes.
And I think about this often when I hear people talk about when you get to the quantum level, the laws of physics break down. Well, and that's where it absolutely reminds me of music, because there are no laws in music. It's called music theory. When you learn about music, you learn music theory. So these are practices and things that you can do. These are observations that we make, and the way you can construct things when you're dealing with making fine sonic architecture. And that leads you to break those rules at some point, because it's still logical that it's creative in a different direction than other people had envisioned. And we need to do this with the so-called laws of physics. They're not laws, they're theories. We've observed the universe. We believe this is what we're seeing, and we've made some rules about it, but they don't work all the time. So there needs to be a mindset shift away from this idea that because we can repeat these observations and we can reproduce these conditions, that doesn't mean that it works at the quantum level. There's something else going on there, and there's something that we are going to have to figure out as a species.
Absolutely. And I love that you brought that up, because even at the quantum level, when we talk about these rules, right, they are rules until they're not.
Yeah.
We get new information, right? I just saw some headline the other day about astronomers and scientists now needing to completely rethink several theories around dark matter and black holes, because they're now seeing that this ever expanding, we thought the universe was expanding at the same rate in all directions, and it's actually different in different areas. And so it's constantly back to the drawing board. So I really love that parallel between music theory and scientific theory, because the scientific method really is, okay, this is reality, this is the law, until we learn something new and we break that old paradigm and we shift into the new one.
Absolutely. And one of the other things that I have pondered for many years now is how we explain these things to the non-scientific public.
Right.
It's the same thing. How do I explain what I do musically to a general audience that even if they took guitar lessons or something when they were younger, perhaps they don't have a lot. And so what what an analogy that I came up with is imagine you're reading a really interesting book by a gifted author.
Okay.
And while most of us go through life using a running vocabulary of 2,000 to 3,000 words in the English language, out of the 500,000 words in our language, a gifted author can then come up with probably a vocabulary of 10,000 to 15,000 words, and some of these words you'll read them in the book, and you may have to go look them up. But when you do, you realize there is a subtle, a nuance there that you hadn't thought about before. And so the way this author is describing things, there's no other way. Once you understand what the word means, you realize, oh, that really hits the spot. So that's how I kind of liken what I'm doing musically to this work, or to architecture as a building. So I always say I deal with sonic architecture. So when you go and you walk by a building and you see, you can admire from the outside that it's really beautiful, and it's got a great design. But I can go in and look inside, and I can tap on the walls and understand what's going on with the inner construction, and so all of this leads me to how for lack of a better term, branding and marketing goes with the space industry. And going way back to NASA, I remember as a small child watching the final splashdown of Apollo 17 in the
Mm.
ocean on TV. And my dad said, this is the last one. And I said, why? And he said, well, because, there's not a lot of commitment with the general public, and Congress decided to shut it down. And that was probably a simplistic explanation that he was giving to a small child. But still, in my head, even at that young age, I thought, this is incredibly short-sighted, right? And because I was already thinking, while I was watching Star Trek and stuff like that, well, great, that's great. We've gone to the moon now. Next, we're going to be, living on the moon in the next 10 or 20 years. And then, space travel should be something that's commonplace by the time I'm 40 or 50 years old. And maybe I can even go to Mars for vacation. And I know that was a very simplistic view, but that's how I was thinking about it. And but it made me think, well, what about other people? Later on, I started wondering, what about other people who are very concerned with, what's going on Earth right now? And I think the message that the space industry really needs to get across to the general public is, look at everything you do in your daily life. Anytime you look at your phone, it's because of our presence in space. Anytime you use your laptop, it's because that technology was designed during the Apollo era. And, cell phones, satellites, weather forecasting, all of that stuff. We are reliant on all these things that happen in space for our daily lives now on planet Earth. And it makes our lives better in many, many ways. And I don't think this message has gotten across, because even now, 50 years or more after the last splashdown from the Apollo series, people are still saying, take care of problems here on Earth first and then go into space. Well, the problems are going to be here even after we're a multi-planetary species. That's fine. And those problems will migrate over to the other planets too, right? They'll have their own issues. And who knows, there may be a difference of opinion between our descendants who start thinking of themselves as, well, we live on Mars. I was born and raised on Mars. I'm a Martian. I don't want an Earthling telling me what to do, because I feel that as a Martian, nobody can understand better what life is like for me as a human being on Mars. And yes, we're all humans, but I'm Martian, so I need you to understand that. So things like that will be happening, right? People are always going to have differences of opinion, but this stuff is happening. And if the general public, especially in countries where there is this debate, there are some places on Earth where there is no debate. They just have this idea: we're going to the moon, and then we're going to go to an asteroid and whatever. We're going to go and do all this stuff, and nothing is going to step in our way except for just our understanding and whatever technological issues we'll face along the way. But it's definitely happening. And so while people are sitting there and debating, it's still going on. It's just a question of, does the general public want to be involved in this? Does the general public want to be a part of this? And we can explore space and make use of space peacefully, like we do with Antarctica. There's, I'm lucky enough in my lifetime to have, I was a touring musician for many, many years. So I've been to approximately 80 countries on this great planet of ours. And I've seen all 7 continents, including Antarctica. No, I was not there to play a concert. There are no gigs yet. But it's the same thing, right? There are no concerts on the moon yet, or at the space station. Yes, people may play a flute or a ukulele or something like that, but it's not like, we need the first. People are always talking about the first this in space, the first that, the first whatever. We need the first professional musician giving a performance from the space station, or eventually from the moon, that that people can enjoy, again, for these creative, to keep the creative juices flowing in society and in all the pursuits that we have to make life better for all of civilization because of these activities that we're undertaking to become a multiplanetary species.
Thank you. That was a very good assessment, and I couldn't agree with you more. It is really a perception
Yeah,
problem at the moment, and not a full understanding of all of the benefits. Like as you mentioned, our cell phones, our laptops, baby formula. A
yeah,
lot of these things that we use in our day-to-day life happened because of these space programs. And it's important to make sure people understand and really think of, Earth and space are not separate. They are part of the same system.
yeah,
We are inside of space or a part of space, and that's never going to change. And so really starting to understand our environment, not just at the planetary level, but beyond that. Another thing that people have not really thought about is all the space junk that's up there.
oh yeah,
And, all these things that were sent up over time and, now have been deactivated and newer satellites have gone up, et cetera. And, we have that as an issue as well. And then, if that starts to bump into active equipment or if it re-enters the Earth's atmosphere. So there's a lot of things that I think for a period of time humans did without thinking about the long-term consequences.
yeah.
And that's why we're here, and that might be part of the problem of why it was not really conveyed at the same level, or the narrative has not been consistent enough for people to truly understand why it's so important.
And I feel that there are people thinking about that right now. I think I was thinking again. Uh, One of the reasons why I'm very happy to be in touch with all these people in the space technology industries is because I can give them an idea that is not, it's just based on pure creativity without the detailed technical understanding. The same thing, like I feel that coders for software, they kind of live in a rarefied world and they don't understand that maybe, if a button on my cell phone has been here for many, many years, and then I update, and then all of a sudden the button is down there, or it doesn't even exist. There are two buttons that give you different choices. Maybe that's a little disconcerting to the average public. So again, we need to explain why these things work. So what I had spoken to a couple people about, who are friends of mine that are really in the thick of it, working for these companies that are trying to solve all these problems. And is what about the idea of look, eventually in space we are going to have to recycle and reuse everything. There's not going to be something that we can just throw away. Okay, whether it's organic matter or a plastic of some kind or any type of metal. I mean, yeah, ideally there would be a machine that would go up in space, make use of this material, gather it, analyze it, figure out, okay, well, we have some component. Let me see. We have some titanium here. We have some selenium. We have plastics. We have whatever. We detect these molecules. Let's separate them all out and make something else new. What do we need? We have an order from this company that they need whatever spare parts for the current space station that is existing in
Yeah.
whatever 2047. And so let's go up and do that. And then that leads to further ideas that, well, we can have this type of technology, sort of automated technology, that will go to the moon or to an asteroid and determine what's there, and then make stuff based on the needs of the current situation. Create and manufacture in space. We don't need to bring it up from Earth anymore. And you just wonder at that point, would we even be in a situation where there are, okay, again, we're going to have a lot of people saying we're polluting the Earth right now. What's going to stop us from polluting the moon or polluting, like overmining the moon or Mars or something like that? Well, yes, that's a good point. But there are so many millions of asteroids all around us that could be mined and make it at some point in our future. Imagine that, gold or platinum or any of these materials that we need for certain types of industries are no longer scarce. It's the only thing we would need to worry about at that point is just how can we find more soil so we can grow more trees and plants and all these these biological benefits that we get from these things, or being able to make things out of wood, right? This is something we want to be able to do eventually in outer space. So I'm heartened to know that it appears that some people are thinking about this.
Yes,
right?
no, there definitely are. And, I think that, there's going to be so many different schools of thought here. And yes, we have to do this mindfully, right? We have to do it intentionally. But I love also, some people might hear you talk and say, oh, that'll never happen. But look at where we are today. When we used to watch Star Trek when it first came out, we would think, could that ever happen? And yet some of that technology is commonplace today.
And other technology that nobody back then ever thought of is absolutely vital for existence today. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And so this is why the creative pursuits are so powerful, because by allowing us to create worlds, create ideas, create these thoughts, it then can lead to the innovation. How are we going to push the boundaries? How are we going to test this law and see if it is a law or if it's just a theory, and find something else in the process? When we get stuck in the details where we're just looking at the tree, we can't see the forest.
Right.
That's why we don't get the leaps. But when we're able to have someone come in, it's very often a creative or someone from a completely different industry that comes in and asks a very innocent question, just trying to understand. That then the penny drops and everyone's like, whoa, wait a second. And then all of a sudden we have this forward momentum. I mean, think about all of the movies that we have had about space, and the timeline of creating those movies. And, Avatar is a great example. The idea that James Cameron had it was a while ago, but he needed to wait for the technology to kind of catch up to bring this vision to life. And then that helps shift the consciousness a little bit. It helps shift the thought process, the mindset, and music too. I think about Interstellar, and I remember those scenes where the music and the visuals are so powerful that, you have a visceral bodily reaction. And I think the more we can have those experiences, the more people can start to understand just how special and powerful and magical it really all is. And, there are ways that we can work together to make it happen.
Absolutely. And I mean, one of the things that has kind of bothered me, or I don't know, I have mixed feelings about it in the film industry, is that, and which is I'm very closely associated with it here in Hollywood. I actually don't work specifically on films, but oftentimes music that I have made for a record or something like that will get used as background music in a film or a TV show. And the one thing that a couple of things that I've noticed. One is you always have these dystopian future movies, and somehow we still manage to get out of this big mess that we got ourselves into, and then there's hope for the future. But I think one of the reasons why they make those dystopian future movies is so that we'll have these reminders not to actually do that in real life. But I would love to see some movies where, in the future, it doesn't have to be utopian, but, things are going well and we're getting stuff done. And there are big companies that are not out to ruin the environment, and which, I think there are some like that today. And I think exactly, in the space industry, there's no intention of going out there and trying to, see where we can cut costs, so that we weighed the idea that, well, okay, a certain number of people will get hurt or killed by this, but that we're going to make this profit instead, so we can afford the lawyers to fight them in court and things like that. I don't get that same sense as I get in maybe some other industries. I feel like, and I could be wrong about this, but I feel like generally there is this sort of higher level of caring about civilization in general.
Mm.
And I feel like this is across the board. You can find this in any industry, but when you're doing it with the idea that you're going to have to solve problems in the future that we haven't even thought of now.
Oh,
We don't know, right? You don't just like go to the moon and break out the old hammer and nails and start, building a I, I'm thinking any habitat on the moon, because of the radiation and everything. It's gonna sun's radiation. It's gonna have to be underground, right? But we can have like a really nice underground society there with artificial light and grow plants and have gardens and all that. But the technology doesn't quite exist yet, but I think we're on the way towards doing that. So I mean, yeah, anything that the Hollywood industry can do to sort of foster this, I think is great, because in the end, yeah, these things come from people working together despite their differences.
yes.
I had a great history teacher when I was in college, and one thing I remember is he said, there may be all these countries on the planet right now having conflicts, but if an alien race came from outer space and wanted to actually take over our planet and kill all the humans, all these warring countries would suddenly stop fighting with each other, and they would fight against the aliens for the good of humanity. And then after they won, they might start fighting again, but but that's probably what would happen, and I think that's that's kind of the theory behind the movie Independence Day.
Right.
And so if this is possible, when there's something really heavy duty on the line, maybe we can engender or influence people to be thinking that way, even when there's not something really super critical like the future of civilization on the line. Because this is what I when I talk to people about multi-generational thinking, I think that's one thing that absolutely we cannot be beholden to the whims of the current, whatever current trends are going on in like pop culture and
Right.
things like that, for these goals. Like when I talk about millennial goals, I'm not talking about millennials who were born whatever 20 years ago.
Right.
I'm talking about goals that we need to put in place right now for the year 3000, so that we can pass on these goals to our children and grandchildren, and then they can actually figure out a way how to do these things, right? I mean, another thing that bothers me about movies, even going back to George Orwell's 1984, we're kind of like seeing 1984 type situations around the world now.
Mm.
Yes, but that book title, I think it was a little short-sighted. I was probably a little short-sighted of the title 2001, to think that we would have a moon base by 2001, which we did not, obviously.
Right.
And traveling to Jupiter and all those things with manned flights. So I don't know. Avatar is set in the year 2154, at least the first Avatar. I'm not sure that we'll be there traveling between the stars, because I'm not sure that it's up to like regular propulsion systems. Maybe it has to do with the curvature of space-time and bending it so that we don't it doesn't take us 700 years to get to the next star through the types of propulsion systems that people are talking about today. There's something else going. Again, the laws of physics have to be rewritten when they figure out how to deal with all this quantum stuff and the curvature of space-time and everything that goes into that would get us there. But yeah, I'm probably sad, but I think I've come to terms with the idea that we may not get to Mars in my lifetime. We may not see humans on Mars in my lifetime, but that doesn't mean that it's not a goal that's still worth having, right? This is a goal for our descendants, and I think they will thank us much like we are always, being thankful for Benjamin Franklin and Leonardo da Vinci, and going back even further than that, who were the people that came up with the base 12 math that led us to minutes, seconds, hours? That's all base 12 stuff that was here thousands of years ago. And yeah, I suppose they did try. I think the Romans tried to have, like, what is it, 10 hours of 100 minutes with 100 seconds for each minute. And then there were, I don't know how that worked out for the days, but it was a big problem. And so the system we have now is really good. It works, and we've had it for a long time, and we're thankful to all these things that our ancestors gave us. But now we need to figure out still what we can do to make it even better for our descendants.
Yes, I love this. Multi-generational thinking is definitely where we need to be. And it brought to mind this book. Have you heard of What We Owe the Future by William McCaskill?
I have. I have not read it yet.
I read this as a recommendation from an astrobiologist that I know. And it's basically an Oxford philosopher making the case for long-termism, which is a way of thinking that positively influencing the long-term future is a key moral priority of right now. And I really loved how this book was laid out and the structure, because yes, we have to look at climate change, and we have to, worry about pandemics and all of these things. But what he's actually suggesting is that what we need to do is leave behind the clues so that when these things happen, civilization can rebound. It doesn't have to start all over, right? And do we have the systems to support that? And so if we make those wise choices today, the grandchildren and grandchildren's grandchildren's grandchildren can survive and thrive, knowing that we did our best to lay this pathway forward. And I have to say, before I read the book, I really struggled with this concept. And, because a lot of people think, well, I'm one human, I'm going to live, let's just say 80 years. What difference is it really going to make? Or why should I care? Maybe I'm not going to have children. Why should I care what happens when I'm gone? And he lays out a really beautiful way of thinking that helps you to unwind and understand just how powerful the choices you make today are for the future, and why you should care. So I really highly recommend it. I think you'd really enjoy it just based on our conversation today.
Well, and I will definitely check it out. It just makes me, it reminds me of what I have realized over the years for myself. I was, the very first album that I recorded many, many years ago, went on to win a Grammy the following year. So that was a good way to start my career. But when I was done with the album, and I was 16 years old at the time when I became a professional. I joined the union and became a professional musician. 16 years old. I was talking to the drummer on the album. I played bass, and I told him, "Yeah, I feel good about what I did, but there are certain things I think I could have done better. I wish we just had a little more time." And he said, "Hey, man, this stuff ain't going to cure cancer." And I always remembered that, and I didn't necessarily agree with it then, and I don't think I agree with it now, because what happens if something that I have done, and this is based on communications that I've gotten from people who have been deeply influenced by the music that I've been a part of, either directly myself or my work for other artists. What if the music that I have created has given somebody who's fighting cancer just that much more energy and spirit to be able to battle it that much further? And so they eventually end up in remission. What if I helped with their mental attitude so that they can battle this and then go on to live another day and become, and then to make their own contribution to civilization? I consider this my contribution to civilization. I exist at the intersection of art, science, and math. And I think when I was a little kid, if I kind of hadn't been born into the music industry because of my father, I might be working for JPL or something like that right now. But I was always fascinated by math, and how it related to music. I mean, music is math in an intuitive sense. We are dealing with numbers. Everything we do um, is, everything we do in music is related to math, whether people are willing to admit it or not. And so and that doesn't have to be like a cold or mechanical way of looking at it. These things can all develop organically as part of what we're doing as a species, as a civilization, and we each make our contribution, even if it's very, very minimal. It doesn't matter. It's still a contribution to civilization rather than something that just takes away from it. I remember listening to songs when I was a young child that were talking about how we are destroying nature.
Mm.
And actually, I think there were a lot of things going on in the mid 20th century that thank goodness those did not continue into today. At least not on most places in the planet. We're I think we're much better stewards of our planet than we were back then. On the other hand, there are people who feel exactly the same way now as they did as those earlier generations felt in the 60s and 70s about the damage that we were doing to the planet. So I'm not, having seen these improvements and just knowing that here in this very populated city that I live in, that the air pollution is a lot less than it was when I was a child, when there was lead in the gasoline. Uh,
Mm.
that's a great feeling to have, to know actually, well, we thought it was going to be very dystopian in the future, but actually there are some great things happening. But that doesn't mean we can rest. That doesn't mean we can stop and say, oh yeah, okay, we solved all the problems. We have to continue to go forward with figuring out the next better way, and realizing that there are going to be a lot of people that are not going to want to go, and there may be more than one better path forward. And so it's just a question of seeing how it all pans out as we work on these endeavors.
Thank you for sharing those reflections, because I think we often fail to recognize the achievements and corrections and iterations we have had, right?
Yeah.
There's always going to be something to fix. There's always going to be something to evolve, because as we grow, as we get new information, the picture changes, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes we focus so strongly on one point
Yeah.
that we correct this point in a silo, and then there's ripple effects and unintended consequences
Yep.
and things that we did not have the long-term view on, or maybe weren't even aware of how changing this would impact the equation down the line.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make it right or wrong. It's just what it is, and it's important. As you said, there's no one way. I like to always joke, it's not like the Mandalorian, right? It's not the way that we're going to follow, but there are multiple paths forward, and it's about finding the ones that work and taking into the bigger picture, right?
Yeah.
Which is
And I mean, getting back to space recycling, if we can figure out a way to, yes, just kind of reuse everything that is so that we can actually do this. Oh gosh, what's the place in Arizona? The
bio,
bio
biosphere. I'll be there in May.
biosphere. Yeah. So if we could really make a closed biosphere that worked. So we haven't quite figured it out yet, but that doesn't mean that it's not a worthwhile goal, right? If we can get that closed system happening, maybe not on a space station, but on a place like the moon, or if we could maybe on the way to Mars, set up a small colony on, I don't know, Ceres or one of the big asteroids, is sort of like a testing ground. And whatever those problems are that we solve there will put us into a position on Earth where again, because oil and plastics, the plastics that they're derived from, this is a finite amount, unless we can, unless we can discover oil in outer space somewhere. But this is a finite quantity, so we have to, eventually we're going to have to go to the landfills piece by piece. Again, hopefully there's machinery that can do this. Piece by piece, take everything apart and recycle and reuse and figure out a way to make it, part of, again, following, what was it? Einstein, was it Einstein that said, matter is never created or destroyed. It just changes form, right? So we just need to make a way to continue this cycle of using the matter again and again and changing its form. And if we can figure out how to do that in space, in order to exist on the moon in some sort of a closed biosphere type of situation, then the possibilities for what that could do for quality of life for all people on this planet is just mind-boggling. It's just astounding what we could do if we, so we're in the second stage right now, right? We have, instead of one trash can like we had when I was a kid and everything goes into that trash can, now we got three, at least in most places. One is for trash, and we've got recycling, and then we got organic material. So maybe we'll have 5 trash cans 20 or 30 years from now, because they'll figure out a way to, fine tune something. Or maybe they're, just like people are composting for themselves, there'll be something in the future where people will just, just throw all the plastics in there, and it's gonna, we can make our 3D printer print us up another container for putting something in, so I won't have to go to the store and buy brand new plastic or something like that.
Yeah, and this is a mindset shift, also what I'm hearing from you too, because when we use things without that thought in our mind, right, and it's the single time use, and we're throwing things away, we're contributing to the problem.
Yeah.
And you might think, well, I'm one person, what am I really doing? Well, if every single, how many people, billion people do we have? 7.8, maybe it's more than that now. A billion people are all having this thought. That's a lot, right? And so looking at where in your own life you can reuse things and you can be more mindful about what you're purchasing, right? Are you purchasing something that's you're able to get a lot of use out of, or are you just kind of, fast fashion, single use Ziploc baggies instead of containers and all sorts of things like that. Right. All of those things add up. And I shared this on a podcast about ethics and morality earlier this week, but my father made a really good point to me. I still remember we were in his like Ford 150 driving down the dirt road, and we were talking about mindset. And he said that everything really changed when the BIC revolution came. And I said, what do you mean the BIC revolution? He said, well, when you could just throw out your pen and get a new one, or throw out your razor and get a new one, people stopped working on things. They stopped working on fixing relationships. The way you do one thing is the way you do all things. It started to trickle into just the way we exist. Yeah. And that really stuck with me. He's still got a hairdryer. He's got like these long rocker locks, and he still has a hairdryer from the 70s, and he just changes the pin. And it was like the best hairdryer I've ever used. When I had long hair, I would always steal his because it was the best. Yeah. Meanwhile, we have this like consuming culture, not just in America or North America, in a lot of places, to get the hottest thing, the latest thing, and just completely disregard the old stuff.
Yep. I generally keep, I think I've only had like 4 or 5 cars in my life, because I drive them into the ground. I keep them for anywhere from 10, 15, 20 years. I still have a spare vehicle that is now 31 years old. It's still in fine working condition. It's a big old van. It actually gets good gas mileage, and it's great for, going and picking up a lot of stuff, or grabbing a piece of furniture from a store or something like that. But otherwise, I have a much younger, fuel efficient vehicle. it was made in 2011, so it's now
That's awesome.
13 years old, but it still works great. And I'm just so I don't want to contribute to the junkyard, the junkyard heap if I can. And I don't. I feel like if everybody can sort of do things like that, use things longer. Yeah, I have stuff all over my house that um, was given to me by my grandfather or my father or my grandmother, something that they gave to me when I was a small child, and I'm still able to make use of that item today. And why not? Because yeah, exactly, if you can fix something when it breaks down instead of tossing it out, again, that's something that they're going to have to do on the moon. You
Absolutely.
can't just throw things away on the moon. And
Right.
I mean that kind of brings me to the other big thing that has been on my mind, which is another millennial goal, year 3000, which is the idea of terraforming. And it's something that I first read about in the 80s. And not a lot has been thought about it, because it really is something that, the technology to be able to go to Venus or Mars and make the planet more Earth-like is going to take centuries. And actually, we should probably again try and do it with an asteroid first, so we don't just completely botch things up. But again, there are a large supply of orbiting bodies. Uh, Gosh, and I think one of these other things that I was still a little dismayed at the space industry for why they're not explaining these things a little more clearly to the general public. When New Horizons first launched, I thought, oh yeah, we're going to Pluto, and then after that we can go to whatever, Eris and Sedna and all those other. Well, they call them dwarf planets. I think we can call them planets. I mean, we've discovered more moons around Jupiter and Saturn. We're not calling those dwarf moons, right?
Right.
But so there are all these planetary bodies. We can pick one of them, make a test run. Maybe by the year 2500 or 2600, we have perfected the technology so that we can go in with confidence and turn Mars or Venus into a habitable planet. And this is, concurrently with still trying to figure out how we can get to one of these exoplanets that seem like they could be a good place for humanity to live at some point in the future. And that's again, that's a goal that is something that people can talk about now, realizing that, yeah, we're not going to see it in our lifetime, but that doesn't mean that it's a goal not worth having. It's still something that can help people one day, because if we set up a base on the moon, we are, again, we are in a hostile environment, so to speak. The space station is unfortunately still, it's still kind of a hostile environment, because something can go wrong, and all life on the space station could be extinguished, in a matter of seconds. But again, what we do to make it so that that doesn't happen has immediate benefits to what we're doing on Earth to make sure that people are living safely and happily. So that whole idea of, let's not only find other planets that we can live on, but let's eventually find a way that we can make those planets habitable by us without needing to walk around in a spacesuit. And there are going to be certain things that we can't get around. Whatever, people that are born and raised on Mars, let's say in the year 3100, they're going to be accustomed to Mars gravity. So if
Right.
they decide to take a vacation on Earth, it's going to be a heavy, daunting process. They might have to go through some physical conditioning, a little bit extra workout at the gym or something like that, to be able to be worthy of the adventure. Just like people need to condition themselves to be able to scale Mount Everest or any other lower mountains all over the planet. So these are all conditioning things that will, come into effect at some point. But yeah, wouldn't it be nice if there were another place in the universe besides Earth where we could just step out into the open air and breathe it and exist, and somehow we've got protection. We've got protection for radiation that could be coming either stellar or interstellar, and we've got a heat source, from somewhere that is making this air warm, not only breathable but also the right temperature so we can exist there. These are all, again, multi-generational issues that are, I think we're ready to be able to start discussing these things earnestly now. And it's, maybe that'll be another contribution I could have to civilization, is just trying to convince more people that this is a noble goal, and it's something to be looking forward to. I even actually an album cover I made. This is so you see we've got Neptune. I made this this album came out the same year as we so you saw that's Pluto and Charon, however you pronounce the largest moon of Pluto, in front of Neptune, and I titled it Out of the Blue because Neptune was all we could see. That was the farthest body, and so now out of the blue we can see what Pluto and its moons look like, and now I look forward to whatever's coming next. But I have actually a lot of space themes, like this. This is actually a picture of the moon taken by the Apollo 17 astronauts, and on that we superimposed a habitat structure where there's art here, and these are actually pictures that I've taken from all around the Earth in my travels, and you can see it's a kind of like this three-dimensional art display there, and then we've got the crescent Earth in the background. So these are the types of things that I'm thinking about when I am creating music, and so hopefully that's my one small contribution to the space industry, if nothing else, and just to keep reminding people that this is well, maybe there is something to the Mandalorian's words. It may not be the only way, but it's a way, or a series of pathways that we really need to focus on at some point in this century for our descendants.
Amazing. I have a big smile on my face because on Monday, which is Earth Day, we are hosting, when I say we, I'm talking about the Earthlight Foundation.
Okay.
And we are hosting Earth Space Day 2024. So we're hoping to push this concept of Earth Space Day because Earth is a part of space. It's not separate, and how we can start to shift the thinking.
Yeah.
And we have Frank White, who's spoken about the overview effect. Rick Tomlinson is, one of the founder of Earthlight Foundation. And one of his favorite books, and, a big part of his culture and his background is The High Frontier, by Gerard O'Neill. And all of these things that you're talking about are concepts that we discuss, and it's about the philosophy, right? And how we can do things to move forward, and how we can get buy-in for these new ways of thinking, these new ways of being. And it doesn't always have to mean that you're the engineer, or you're the astronaut, or, you're this really complex rocket scientist. It can be that you're creating the music, or you're creating these pathways, these multiple realities, if you will, because you've inspired someone, or, to your point earlier, you've helped them get through a difficult time. I mean, we all turn to music when times get difficult. And we all remember things in picture format, right? We don't remember words on a page. We remember what it looked like. So poetry is a form of art also. And, the feelings that we can get inspired by through these mediums are what ultimately allow us to connect to the larger picture, right?
Yeah.
To understand how we can play a part in that. And so that was very powerful. Thank you.
Well, my pleasure. And we need pets in space too.
Oh, we definitely need pets in space.
Don't forget that. Yeah.
I want to bring my dog.
Yeah, we need to have our dogs and cats or whatever to have them have a presence in space alongside with us, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we don't want it to be this extreme environment all the time, which, as you mentioned, it is now. It's dangerous. There's high stakes. That safety is paramount. But when we are living on other planets or asteroids on long-term space travel, astronauts bring music with them to listen to. They're allowed a small pack. Many of them bring earphones and music, and we're not going to just want to be in a concrete cell of some kind with this like fluorescent lighting. We will want greenery. And so when I always say to very science or logic oriented type people, I ask them to just look around their home, look around the room that they're in, and look at how many things are there for pure aesthetic reasons. There's no other function than for you to simply look at it or listen to it and enjoy it. And even the most cerebral intellectual will have those things in their home.
Yes. Yeah. And I've always wondered, what would it be like, for instance, if I were to work on a composition at the piano at my home and then go up into a weightless environment, even if it's just on the parabolic flight, and then work on that composition while I'm weightless. Is there going to be a change? Is there going to be an effect? And it's the same thing when we bring our pets up into space, and you have dogs trying to make their way around a weightless environment, or an environment where if they jump, they go like 10 feet into the air instead of 2. How are they going to adapt? How are they going to respond? And also, what are we going to be able to do to help them? And again, in the process, figure out how we can make something better for people right on this planet here.
Absolutely. Yes, because the two are very interconnected. And it's interesting. Maybe that sounds like something you need to do. I know a few people that I can connect you with to parabolic flight.
Okay, I'll have to remember to eat light, because I don't want to have indigestion get in the way. But
and that also is, it's the different environments that evoke something in us, right? When we travel to a new place, or we see, we experience awe in so many ways. Sometimes it's really small. It's a butterfly or a lightning bug. And other times it's the Himalayas, right? Or a sunset or a sunrise. But by going in that different place, working at a coffee shop, if you compose music at home versus, when you're traveling somewhere, or, even in your car, when you have a few moments and inspiration strikes, the energy and frequency that comes into those different ways of writing and ways of you composing are going to be different, right? Because you're inspired differently.
Well, and I remember one specific situation where Prince had a song, the artist Prince, he had a song that he wanted a string arrangement for. And I was in the middle of a tour, and I hadn't planned on actually having to write music during that period. So I was stuck in my hotel room, and I didn't have any instruments with me except for my electric bass, which, I like to write at the piano. And so I finally came up with the idea that I would take a sheet of paper and draw piano keys on there. Then I could place my fingers on there. And this is like solving a math equation. I could place my fingers, and visually looking at my fingers on the piano allowed me to be able to hear what the notes would have been had I been on a real piano. And in that way, I could write out the arrangement by hand and send it back. And so these, again, when you do something like that, that's why I thought, if they had my brain all wired up so they could analyze my brainwave patterns while I was writing music at home, and then write in weightless, and still be connected with all the, so they could do a study on how is it different? Did the brain react differently when trying to take care of this creative pursuit that actually involves, it does involve engineering and math, even though it's a creative pursuit. Is there a difference, when we're weightless?
Yeah.
Because I mean, people on the space station right now, they have to solve serious problems all the time when they're weightless, but they have Earth to rely on too, and they have all the backup down here. Okay, but when you're on Mars and there's what is it? It's going to be 24 minutes each way just to to exchange a single sentence. Then you got to solve problems on your own.
Yeah.
Seriously, and that's a whole different way of and how is the gravity going to affect that? I mean, there are so many different things to think about. Again, it's this total interconnected thing. Well, send me a link for what you're doing on Earth Day, because
yes. Well, and actually, I was going to ask you offline, but I'll just ask you online. We have a video from the Sen group, which they're putting up satellites for 4K footage of Earth because they really believe in the importance of all of us being able to see what the Earth looks like. And, it's kind of, to me, it's like the concept of a zoo, which I think that the more the animal parks, it's important. We have to find a balance, but when we rehabilitate animals, right, we can see them. They're real to us now. We can now take steps to take action, other corrective actions. Same thing for our planet. When we can visualize it in a different way, it's really powerful. And I need some background music for the video that we're going to play. So maybe we can pair it up with some of the music that you've created and share them together.
Yeah, give me an idea of the styles that you're looking for, and I'll sort of hunt through the library and see what I can come up with for you.
Awesome.
Definitely.
Thank you. Yes.
All
Now,
right.
did you want to share some of your music? I know we had a couple videos that we loaded up. Do you want to, should we share the blues, or should we share
you can play. Why don't you do Pictures at an Exhibition, because that was this album here, which is it's Pictures at an Exhibition was originally written in the 19th century, and then it was treated in various formats throughout the 20th century, and now I've updated it for the 21st century, and I've got a space theme to it, again, to try and bring awareness to the general public through my music.
Amazing. So I just want to share Terry Trevino, who has also been to the Arctic and does some really cool science things, just commented on the real-time collaboration we just spoke about. Let's go ahead and play. We've got a short 15-second clip here.
Yeah, so that's one thing. Now that's my jazz side. There are some people that know me only in the jazz realm. There are other people that know me, only in the R&B realm because of the string arrangements that I've done for Prince and Usher and Michael Jackson and other artists. But there are all different styles that I deal with. And for me, again, creativity exists outside of genre. So if you have a good idea musically, it can exist in just about any genre. And I think cross-genre or trans-genre music is something that I'm very enamored of. And it goes to anything that you do in civilization. Again, if you have a good idea, if you're creative and you have a good idea, it might be applicable in many different situations. And I think this is again part of how we move forward as a civilization, the spark of creativity, right?
Well, and when you go across these genres, right, there are the different rules that are typically followed.
Yep.
And then when you cross into a new genre, this is often where those unique sounds come from, right? Like Elvis was crossing genres, and that's why he was capturing the hearts of so many, because it was new. It was like, wow, there's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And, it sparks ideas. Again, you get the different perspective. You're asking the questions, well, why do we have to do it that way? Yeah. And it allows that door to stay open so that the creativity can flow. And Albert Einstein also said, creativity is intelligence having fun. Right?
There you go.
We didn't just come to this planet to, work and be serious all the time. We're also meant to have fun. And when we do have fun, that's when we come up with the good ideas. Right?
Yeah.
a burnt out person does not come up with great ideas. They're usually not coming up with any ideas. And then when they do have something, it's usually out of fear or desperation because they're just not seeing the full picture, right? They're
Yeah.
only in this one state of mind. So yeah, no, it's really exciting to see what you've done with music and how you've been able to cross these genres. And so we'll share the links to your music channel and everything, your website, so that everyone can follow. But I do want to ask you a couple questions that I like to ask all of my guests.
Okay.
So the first one is, what do you believe is your superpower?
I believe my superpower is, and this maybe doesn't have so much to do with what we're talking about today, but I think it has to do with how I've developed my ears. When you walk into a restaurant and you smell the food that's being cooked, you can describe, you recognize that smell of whatever,
Yeah.
barbecued chicken being cooked or something like that, and then you sit down and you put your fork into whatever you're eating and you put it in your mouth, and everything, you can touch it and you realize, well, this feels like a stalk of broccoli, and then it tastes like a broccoli. This is what I'm tasting, and then now I'm eating a carrot. So we have descriptive terms for all of this, but can you then also listen to the music that's playing in that restaurant and think that, okay, well, let me see, I'm hearing something that's in 4/4, that is approximately 120 BPM, and I hear the key is B flat, and there is a string section, and they're playing a B flat major 9 chord. The keyboard player is doing a second inversion B flat major triad. The singer is singing the note F along with the lyrics that he's doing. And, so all those different things. And I can do that when I listen to music. I can hear in extreme detail. And this has, it's a blessing and a curse, because when you're in a mall and there's one music playing in the mall and then there's another music playing in each one of the individual stores, and sometimes they don't match up harmonically with each other or even temporally. These are things that I've learned to tune out, but being able to do that has been one of the great joys in my life, that has inspired me to do things like talk about these things that we're talking about right now. So I would say that's a superpower that I'm very proud of having developed.
Yeah, no, that is definitely an incredible superpower, because being able to discern the sounds and even go as far as to name them, and that would really develop your ear. So what a wonderful practice for people to start doing. And even if you're not musically inclined, it just gave me the sense of, okay, when I go somewhere next, I'm going to start to pay attention to all the different sounds that I can hear and see if I can name them and separate them out, and maybe focus on one and then move to another, because that also brings you really, really into the present moment, which is something that many of us really desperately need in today's world.
I mean, hearing is the least developed of the human senses in most people.
Yeah.
And I don't think it needs to be that way. There are benefits for being able to recognize these things, and even if it's just I'm sure a fine mechanic can recognize when an engine really sounds like it's humming along properly.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's
No, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, and what a great kind of practical exercise for people to walk away with. The next question I have is geared for how we live our lives, how we make decisions. And it's companies have a board of directors, right? Before they make a decision, they go around, there's a vote, and they consult, and they get all these different perspectives. So in your life, do you have a personal board of directors? And these people can be close to you, not close to you, alive, not alive, but just this kind of group of lenses and perspectives that you might adopt as you do your work or make decisions. And so I'd be curious to know more about that.
Yeah, and it's quite large, actually, because I've always said that whether you are producing an album or you are the head of a company, you need to go around and ask everybody what they think, absorb all that information, and then you make the final decision. So that things get done, and there aren't these, you have people giving you different ideas. Eventually, you have to put all this together. You have to make the decision for yourself. I'm moving forward this way. and
Right.
this is what we're going to do, and this is my project, and so that's how it's going to go. And that's what I've done, for years and years. Is I always talk to people. I get as much information as I possibly can, get their opinions, find out what they like and what they don't like. Even when I'm vetting people that I want to use, and I'm talking to somebody that I'm getting a recommendation from, and after I find out what they're good at, then I ask them, okay, what are their weaknesses? Tell me where there's a problem that you had, because I still want to hire this person or work with this person, but I think it'll be helpful up front to make things go more smoothly if I know if they have any weak points that I need to be aware of. I think it'll just make it easier than if we're kind of cryptic about all this stuff and we have to kind of find out the hard way later on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So having these people around me, I feel is invaluable.
Yes, thank you for sharing. It's always so interesting to hear people's perspectives on this question. But isolation is the worst advisor. And I have been told that by many people when I start to, they see me kind of hiding a little bit and they're trying to coax me to, have a conversation. And I don't do it often, but sometimes, we all go through that, even if we are very open. But it's important to have those people around us for our support network and to, like you said, sometimes we might get the perspective. We may choose not to listen, like when we're teenagers and our parents tell us things or our teachers tell us things. But it is important to make sure that we're assessing and using all the tools at our disposal. So that's really great. My final question is designed for big picture thinking, which I know you have. And it's this alien species has come to our planet, and the first human being that they meet is you. So what do they learn about humanity because they've met you, Brent?
I would hope that they wouldn't be looking for a quick answer, because I would, if assuming we could communicate, right? Once
Right.
we break
Very
the
important.
communication barrier, then I would be sitting down with them for hours or even days to try and explain things. And then maybe I would start by introducing them to a few more people and giving, this kind of, this grand overall assessment of humanity and the way our species works. But then at the same time, I want to find out how they work
Right.
and what their goals are, and maybe why they came, and with the idea in mind that I think like two animals meet in the jungle in the wild, there's a standoff at certain points, where you don't know whether you can trust this other being or not. And so we've got to kind of keep our guard up in case something goes wrong, and be ready to spring
Mm.
into action. So I think there's going to be a tentative experience like that at the beginning, and then once we get into our our deeper communications, let's say, about sort of the nature of what we're all doing and what we hope to accomplish, then I think at that point, it would be more like finding out how we are similar, and then
Mm.
looking at the differences too. What kind of goals do we have are similar? How do you think about this? And how does it affect what you've done? Obviously, if another species has the technology to get here from a different planet somewhere else in the galaxy,
Mhm.
uh, that's going to be an amazing experience for us to meet them. And I think also that by virtue of the fact that they've been able to get here before we got there to them, we're going to need to
Mm.
bring our A game, as they
Yes.
say, and show them that it's something we are. Let's say we are a planet worth dealing with on a serious basis, as opposed to them just thinking, oh well, I can consider human beings to, be kind of like, maybe they would consider us to be the equivalent of how we consider dealing with a cat or a dog, or, oh yeah, they're cute, and they're kind of smart, but we know better, and so
Yeah.
we have to kind of guide them along and stuff. We don't know how that would all play out, but this is the approach I think that I would take, was start with
Awesome.
detailed explanations, and get into everything, break it up: psychology, biology, the arts and sciences, and how this all developed, and then see, do they have these categories? Do they,
Right.
or do they have a completely different way of putting together the universe? And then, yeah, just my first approach would be a mutual learning experience.
Amazing. And of course, you'd have to play some of your music, I'm sure, in that process.
There you go.
And see what their experience is. Brent, this has been incredible. Thank you so much for your time today. I know we've
Thank
had a
you.
lot of people watching live and commenting and really enjoying the conversation, and I really appreciate it. If people would like to learn more, hear more of your music, and get in touch, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, I'm all over social media. Just Brent, just type in Brent Fischer, and it should
Great.
Fischer. My actual handle is Brent Fischer _ at the end, because I
Okay.
guess there are a few other Brent Fischers out there. But there's that. There's BrentFischer.com that has all my links, and then yeah. So I always say, instigate with us on Instagram. Uh, Find us on Facebook, friend us on Facebook, like us everywhere. And even if you don't like my music, please still like me on Instagram. That's just the way it works.
Yes, yes. It's all
Because
for the gram, right? All
yeah,
for
you may find something else besides the music that you enjoy too. Because when I post, it's not all about music, and I don't post often. I'm not on social media every single day. But I like to think that when I put something out there, that there was a reason for it, and maybe some of it is humorous based, or humor based. Some of it is music based. Some of it is philosophy, space oriented. But there's a little bit of everything. So yes, by all means, please like me on all my social media. I think you'll enjoy what you see occasionally from me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amazing. You know what? And I love how you place that, and I wish for others that are watching, to go out and express the same, right? These platforms are for expression, they're for connection. And that's how you and I connected. We connected on LinkedIn, had
Yeah.
this mutual love for space and bringing the arts and creativity into the conversation. And here we are in the lounge having this awesome afternoon on a Friday.
Yeah. Well, it's been great. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, Sarah. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome, Brent. And for all of our watchers out there, all of our listeners, thank you for joining us live. Please remember to like and subscribe on the YouTube channel for The Lounge with Sarah the Pivoter. We will be back next week. I have two guests. We have Mike Mongo and someone from the aviation industry, Jamie Muniz, an MBAA YoPro 40 Under 40. And on Monday, I'll be co-hosting Earth Space Day with Rick Tumlinson and the Earthlight Foundation. So that's where we're going to see the collab with Brent come to life. And we look forward to seeing all of you there. Thank you.
I'm a big fan of Rick. Please send him my regards.
I will, definitely. We'll make sure the two of you reconnect.
All right, great.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.